Ladies, gentlemen, and haradrim of all ages, there are a ton of factors when it comes to whether or not you're enjoying Diablo 4, but undeniably one of the largest of these is quite simply the class that you're playing. Tons of players are very malleable in this sense, changing classes every season of the game, or even playing multiple different classes in a single season, just experiencing every side of the game really. Other players, however, just have one class that is their favorite, and they play it every season in hell or high water just to see how it's changed. No matter which side of this bar you happen to be on, you may well have some interest in just how some of the newest interesting builds have been developing for each class in the ongoing PTR happening right now. So today we're going to break down the strongest and most exciting quote-unquote new builds for each class, meaning either builds that just weren't possible before the changes were to begin with in the first place, or ones that are only now actually strong enough to at least be worth talking about. Starting off then with Barbarian, you've probably all seen bits of this by now, especially as it's what I've been playing in all my videos on the PTR on the channel, and it's Dust Devil Barbarian. There were potential versions of this in the past that could exist, but just so unbelievably comparatively weak that they were just mostly ignored. This was fixed in the PTR by buffing the way that flat damage effects work to begin with by making them scale with your weapon damage, but then also the combination of a new legendary that makes Dust Devils not only gain size to have each one be larger, but also gain multiplicative damage boosts in exact equality to its size increase, and then they also added a tempering manual that lets barbarians put 4 different Dust Devil size affixes on their weapons, or even chance for each Dust Devil to actually become 2 Dust Devils, things like that. And if you stack all these boosts together and boost them up with the different masterworking, you can get them absolutely nuts. This is where I feel like I need to reiterate this point from Adam Jackson, lead class designer, which is that especially the specific numbers when it comes to skills or mechanics that have changed are not set. Dust Devils will definitely not be doing this damage when this changes hits live, but who knows how close it may or may not even be. On top of this, the other things coming together to make this possible is just how hard you can stack cooldown reduction between greater affixes and masterworking, allowing you to have really short leap and choke cooldowns compared to normal, and we can also just now get enough fury generation from general gear to not need to have a basic skill at all, even without Harlequin Crest, which is great. Overall, this build definitely has far more damage than survivability, even by barbarian standards, so it's essentially somewhat of a glass cannon, but it is just such an offensively strong glass cannon that is hard to ignore. Then second up today, let's talk about the Sorcerer, and Sorcerer's main fun new build is genuinely really cool, and it's almost entirely based around the unique item Fractured Winterglass. What this does is make Frozen Orb have a 35 to 50% chance to spawn any random conjuration skill when it explodes. As well, it makes any conjuration attack have up to 100% lucky hit chance to launch a Frozen Orb at enemies. The best part of this is it seems to just sort of infinitely loop within itself, meaning if you fire a Frozen Orb and get lucky and it makes a conjuration skill, then the conjuration skill will get the lucky hit chance to fire a Frozen Orb, and that new Frozen Orb can again have up to a 50% chance to spawn a new conjuration skill, which can just loop in itself if you hit the rolls. What this essentially means is any room that you enter, you just fire off a bunch of Frozen Orbs, then the Frozen Orbs create the minions that make more Frozen Orbs to make more minions, and it's just a very interesting and unique building playstyle that really fits the feeling of the new stuff that they're going for, I feel like. The idea of having a very small percent chance of becoming absolutely busted if you get lucky for a singular room really sort of fits the way that Sorcerer is sort of created. After all, they did sort of as a baseline want lucky hit to be uniquely attached to Sorcerer more than the other classes, so having a build where randomness can really dictate your strength to this level is sort of very fitting in my opinion. Chaos magic, you could even say. That said, that's the strongest new Sorcerer build, but there are also some other fun things going on, with Firebolt being fired through firewalls, as well as Incinerate splitting into multiple beams in a sort of cone sort of damage, and there's just a bunch of new stuff for Sorc. It's looking pretty good for you guys. Third up today, we have Rogue, and the new build type that I want to highlight here for this class is Stun Grenades. They have been boosting a number of stun grenade related effects for multiple patches in a row now, and I did try to make this work last season to little success sadly, but thanks to 2 main changes, this is now absolutely a thing. The first is that now every stun grenade based aspect in the game has a secondary line of text that just reads, now additionally increases grenade skill damage by 25 to 40%. And the second is that stun grenades being a flat damage effect have just been buffed in general with the general flat damage effects in the game to scale with actual weapon damage itself of the player. So that in combination with stealth changes, you run every single grenade based affix to increase the damage as much as possible with those new lines of text, but then most of your actual grenades come from the opportunist aspect, which pops them down when you go into stealth. And this isn't necessarily meta, but you can pop stealth every 3 seconds or so, drop a ton of grenades that both stun and murder the hell out of enemies. At least we don't have this quite at a point of becoming meta, but it is seemingly very strong for Rogue. Like, power increased exponentially from previous attempts at grenade builds, which is very neat to see. It means that they're actually making changes that are effective at least. Then fourth, we have Necromancer, and while I will say there is some really cool stuff going on with Bone Spear and Mage minions, where they fire off Bone Spears that match the player's Bone Spear damage, and how that is obviously quite an interesting concept, but by far what seems to be the strongest, somewhat new concept for Necromancers is seemingly based on some sort of bugged interaction, but even if the numbers do go down, the build will still be functionally the same unless they just remove certain parts of the game. To be more specific then, this build was created with a very specific mixing of different things, the main concept being Blight as a skill with the brand new Ebon Piercer unique amulet. This makes Blight shoot 4 bonus smaller projectiles that pierce enemies to deal bonus shadow damage, but the interaction here that's funky is that the bonus Blight projectiles each count as another cast of Blight. They each have their own lucky hit chance that matches Blight's lucky hit chance. Generally speaking, lucky hit chance in this game for each skill is defined by how quickly that skill is expected to hit. It sort of makes sense, right? Less frequent hits, higher lucky hit chance to even it out. Well, Blight is not expected to hit often, so it has a relatively high lucky hit chance for that reason. But with this unique, you now fire out 5 projectiles every time you press Blight, and each of them have that same lucky hit chance, and then we have the tempering manual that gives you lucky hit chance to apply tens of thousands of elemental damage when it procs, with one of the types being, well, Shadow. Combine that with Necromancer having Shadow Blight as a key passive, and now what you have is ridiculously high lucky hit chance, triggering 5 times as frequently as they should for massive shadow damage explosions that then also combo back into Shadow Blight for the key passive bonuses. Just a really interesting feedback loop for this class for sure. Finally then we have Druid, and this seems to be a bit of a shallower one, as the biggest changes to Druid have simply been to make companions actually worth using, and make them actually somewhat strong, honestly, including having them scale properly with player stats now, which is fantastic, and it also makes playing companion-focused builds more viable, with the most fun one that I've seen cropping up specifically in the PTR, of course being the classic legendary that makes your wolves into werewolf companions, and then also makes them apply rabies, which is also better now because rabies has once again been buffed in another patch, so essentially you're gonna actually just go nearly full companions now and have it be actually strong. Build around the werewolves, the werewolf mode for yourself, shred for speed, and poison as your general main non-companion damage, but you're pretty much relying on the companions to do the job, and it's pretty damn good at this specific point to the PTR, with the only real weak spot being the AoE damage. And that just about does it for today then everyone, just a roundup of the coolest and strongest either new or just freshly viable builds for each class in Diablo 4's public test realm for Season 4. Essentially just an unfinished early sneak peek at potential new playstyles that could be around for the season itself. What do you think for each of the classes that you actually care about then? Are you interested in the builds that I've mentioned here, or has something else caught your eye? Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.